Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. This last weekend, we're at the Revive Conference here in Tulsa at our home church, World Outreach Church. Had a great time. And if you're anywhere near Owasso this weekend, we'll be at Life Revolution Church in Owasso Friday night. And then Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday night, we'll be in Princeton, Minnesota. And we'll have a great time there. We'll get into end times, get into whatever the Lord wants us to get into. But with the End of Days Update, we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord. So much is happening every single week. When I first started doing the update, I thought I would do it 2 weeks. And now it's going on almost 10 years. So why? Because so much is happening every week. I'm intrigued about so much stuff that doesn't really get to the States as far as information of what's happening in the Middle East. So we look at what's happening around Israel because the rapture is signless, but the second coming has tons of signs. I think we're up to about maybe 60 to 65 signs of the second coming. So it's pretty blatant, very clear. And God put so many verses in the Bible, so we know what it would look like just before the coming of the Lord. So the book of Daniel, the whole book of Revelation, we know that the tribulation happens and the church is caught up before the tribulation because we have so much authority. We have to be taken off the earth. And if you understand dispensation so well, you see that God owes Israel 7 years back of old covenant time. Daniel said, hey, Gabriel told Daniel, Jesus is going to come after 483 years, but he told them they had 490 years. So God owes them that 7-year period. So, man, everything you're seeing happening right now in the world is literally a setup for the entrance of the King. It'll be just like Joseph revealing himself to his brethren at the very end. Absolutely amazing. What a flawless plan. So cool. So as we get into the end times, it's not about an escape theology. It's about hustle theology. When we see the finish line, we run faster. So much to do in a short period of time. So let's pick up with what's happened around Israel. Probably the biggest things were literally Iran. How crazy. Iran attacks an Israeli oil tanker. And not just an ordinary attack. They sent a drone, not just to fire missiles off a drone, but a kamikaze, or they call it a suicide drone that hit that tanker. So with that, America responded by bringing the USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier group to escort this vessel, and also some destroyers that were along with it, missile-guided destroyers. So America came to its aid pretty quick. But as crazy as that was on Friday, you had on Monday, you had Iran hit 5 more vessels, basically captured 4 vessels that were oil tankers and pretty much hijacked them, tried to make them go back to Iranian soil. So, man, as nuts as that is, Iran is really doing some stuff to get some attention. So, because right now, I guess Secretary of State Blinken said it looks like the nuclear deal is completely shot. It's toast. Iran came out with all these stipulations that they had to have before they would do it again. And basically, they don't want to make any changes. They just want to keep making nuclear weapons. A report came out showing how Iran's, basically, their thought pattern is and their doctrine is religiously to start an end times war with Israel, and it brings in their Messiah, which is technically the Antichrist. So you're watching all this stuff with happening, and I like that Blinken, the Secretary of State of the United States, he said, hey, it'll be a gathered response. So Iran goes, hey, if everybody attacks Iran, they're going to freak out. No, there's going to be a measured, gathered response to all of a sudden tankers being hit by suicide drones. So it'll be really interesting to see what follows up with that. So much is happening, though. You got Israel preparing on the northern border for an exercise, looking like just basically showing Lebanon or Hezbollah that Israel's strong up there. Israel is even going to the lengths of fortifying houses up there to get ready to take missiles. So they know something's getting ready to happen. And I know we talk about Turkey a lot, but man, Turkey this last week had something bizarre happen. You know how Turkey systematically positioned itself completely surrounding Israel. Well, this last week, they opened up where one of the tombs were, where Zeus was, and then you had fires break out in 25 cities simultaneously at 98 different locations. So there's wildfires ravaging all over Turkey right now. Turkey's got that mentality. I believe they're going to be one of the main players to bring Russia down against Israel for the Ezekiel 38 war. So it's interesting to see all of those nations show their cards and show their true colors. So you got things happening around the Temple Mount. Some of the archaeologists that came in thought the third temple was getting ready to be rebuilt because there's so much renovation going on at the Western Wall. And then you had Jerusalem's mayor say, you know what, it's time to expand the borders of the old city of Jerusalem, exactly what Zechariah said. So you got things coming to pass right in front of our eyes that the Bible said so many years ago. So it's so cool. We're watching things get ready for the Lord to come back. So you had rabbis even talking about the weather before the flood. So you had so much crazy floods happening with China. You had volcanoes going off. You had an earthquake happening in Japan. So you got all these natural things along with all the asteroids. So there's a lot of things meeting up together all at one time to show us how close we are for the King to come back. I do like that what's getting ready to happen in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria. We talked about Ben and Jerry's last week. But man, there's getting ready to be an absolute push into Judea and Samaria. And it's really going to expose some true colors with the Israeli government. Because man, it's not about existence. It's not about land for peace. It's about Israel has a right to have all the land. You had protesters in the Bronx, Palestinian protesters in the United States in the Bronx saying it's not about a two-state situation. They said we want all of the land. Well, we know what's going to happen because of that. It'll be World War III, and then it'll be the Battle of Armageddon. So we're so blessed. We always go and look at the Scriptures. So much is happening behind the scenes with things in Israel, but we always go to the Scriptures because, number one, Israel's made a nation. Now, after that, Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those two events will not pass away till all is fulfilled. So you have that. You have the revival of the Roman Empire. You've got the Hebrew language restored. You've got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You've got the fertility of the land of Israel. You have all these things happening. You've got the ritual baths around the Temple Mount fill up with water. You had foxes on the Temple Mount. You had fish show up in the Dead Sea. All these things that the Bible said you'd see just before the coming of the Lord. So we get into all this stuff. Why? Because He loves you so much. He wants you to lift up your heads. Your redemption is drawing nigh. So we have all that stuff. You got 172 different species of predatory birds. You got men who will be lovers themselves. We have selfie sticks. So you have tons of more physical, tangible signs. Don't you love it that the Lord did it that way so it'd be obvious to us? Because He wants you happy. He wants you hopeful. He wants you filled with joy. Your strength will be tied to your joy. You can't get much cooler than getting ready to see Jesus face to face. England wants to come in and talk about that as well. So after that, you've got signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. You had 4 in a row. NASA calls it a tetrad. Pretty amazing. When's the last time you had 4 blood red moons in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967, when Jerusalem was won back. 1948, when Israel was made a nation. 1492, the Edict of Expulsion, when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. And then after that, you had the Bethlehem Star. We don't hear a lot of preaching about that. But man, at the birth of Jesus, you had Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus come together. At the birth of Jesus, the constellation was Virgo. This last year, NBC Nightly News said, hey, we have a celestial event. We got Jupiter, we got Regulus, we got Venus. Wow, Bethlehem Star. First time in 2,000 years. This time the constellation was Leo because he's the lion of the tribe of Judah. So many more celestial things happen, showing us how close we are. But the whole point of this is we see the setup for the entrance of the King. So we make changes. I would hope that we'd be kinder, more merciful, more cutting people slack, and not being angry with people. My mom used to say, Jesus is coming tonight. I go, really? Okay. You want to be kind the night before He's coming. But really the whole point is there should be such a grand excitement in the church because we're about to see the one who died for us, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, bright and morning star, lily of the valley, firstborn from the dead, the shepherd and the bishop of our souls. So all of a sudden we're going to see Him. What an exciting time. Man, help your local church, help your local pastor, be more engaged, be more involved. This is it. Everybody goes, is this really it? I hear people say, oh, all these signs have happened before. No, they've never happened before. You got 60 some odd signs that have never happened before showing Jesus is coming in our lifetime. We're very, very, very privileged. Wow, about to see the King. Have a blessed, awesome week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.
One love to overshadow